Segment two, Rob Blackman, our special guest. I think it's interesting. I don't know that you and I have ever done this show. I mean, you've done a lot of media in your life, and this is a first for you. But we're glad to have you on. Of course, the voice of Purdue men's basketball, and he'll be busy on Sunday. He's busy every day covering the Boilermakers, but and what a season Purdue's having. We'll talk about Wednesday's crazy game in Mackey Arena, Thursday night's crazy game in Lincoln, really, as it turned out to be. Nebraska coming from 19 points behind to beat Wisconsin, and what that all may mean on Sunday at 1 o'clock local or Eastern time. I guess the time is when the Boilermakers take on. Rob will be on the air at noon with his partner Bobby Riddell. One thing we wanted to do to talk about initially is someone we both know, the passing of Jim Rowinski, and that was quite sad news on Thursday night. Hearing of those, of course, Rob and Elliot had done a Boiler Bowl podcast. I was a student manager when Jim Rowinski was at Purdue and knew Jim relatively well. Got to know him, got to kind of reacquainted with him as Rob did in the last year, but just. There's not a lot to say in this type of situation, but it's a sad day for a very proud Purdue basketball program.
Yeah, and his story was so remarkable about even how he just
Yeah.
found his way to Purdue. And I know it's something
Yeah.
you've spoken about at length before, Alan, but yeah, it was really neat. Elliot and I had a chance to visit with him. It was less than a year ago, might have been closer to 6 or 8 months ago. He joined us on the Boiler Ball podcast, and I'm a little bit younger than you are, Alan, not much, but when I was a kid following Purdue basketball, like he was the guy, right? He was like the Incredible Hulk. When you saw him out there and those big muscles and the way he looked in a uniform and just to see him play basketball, you're like, wow, how can a guy with muscles like this be as good as he is at basketball? Because of course back then, weightlifting was kind of taboo in basketball. It's
Yeah.
not anymore, but it was back then. So like just so many great memories from a Purdue basketball standpoint with Jim Rowinski and yeah, man, sad news to hear of his passing.
Yeah, unbelievable story. It really is a Zach Edey-esque story. There are
Yeah.
differences, but you think about Rowinski comes to Purdue at 6'4", 185 pounds as a walk-on, leaves 6'8", 255. Curry Kirkpatrick from Sports Illustrated wrote the great story about the Prince of Pecs. He was an
Yes.
unbelievable story, and he worked extremely hard to get to where he was, and
And,
like you
and
said, it's a sad day.
and as you know, Alan, he came to Purdue. You talk about being a walk on. The story he shared with us. And not only was he a walk on, he was just hoping to make the practice team as a tryout
That's right.
player. He
He
didn't
was a
even,
renegade. They called him,
he was,
yeah.
yeah, played on the Renegade team, and that was all he asked for was, hey, could I have a tryout to maybe make the practice squad? And the rest, as they say, is history. And that's a hell of a story from going from practice squad tryout guy to becoming one of the all time greats in the history of Purdue basketball.
Yeah, he came to Purdue. Lee Rose was the team that last went to the Final Four. He was a renegade, kind of a practice player. We used to call him Dr. Leap because he could jump out of the gym, and that changed a little bit when he got a lot bigger, but unbelievable story. All right, the Boilermakers, let's go back to Wednesday night. Still, you were position A to watch Chris Collins meltdown while you were broadcasting, but more importantly, really from a Purdue perspective, is the Boilermakers really dug themselves out of not as big a hole as Nebraska did on Thursday night, but still down 5 with 2.5 minutes to go. And Northwestern literally not capable of missing a shot, it seemed. What an unbelievable finish to that game.
Yeah, 78-73 was the score you're referencing there when Purdue was down 5. And man, you just sitting courtside just did not have a real good feeling about how that game was going
Yeah.
to wind up. But of course, Lance Jones hits the big three. I mean, God,
Yeah.
my gosh, what a find he has been for Purdue. And look, I'll be the first to say it, Alan. I didn't know much about him. I might, like anyone else, I looked up his resume and saw that he was, 2 times All Missouri Valley Conference defensive team. And I knew that he was 1,000-point scorer, but I certainly didn't think offensively that he was not A, as skilled as we have found out as he is, and B, as fearless as he is. I mean, you think about some of the shots he has made in his very short time here at Purdue, including those threes late in the game when Purdue absolutely had to have him Wednesday night. I mean, my gosh, he did not shy away from the big moment, and we're glad to have him because of that. But yeah, man, what a find, what a punch in the arm he has been offensively for Purdue and on the defensive end too. But just the fact that he was not bashful about letting those threes fly late in the game when Purdue was really teetering there. And yeah, I got to tell you, when it was 78-73, I was real nervous about how that thing was gonna wrap up. But thank goodness for Lance Jones.
Well, and I think one of the interesting things, and you're closer to this team, travel with them, around them a lot, all the time, basically on the road. Last year, Purdue had such a great year, overachieved in a lot of ways, got to the tournament, and it's been well documented what's happened the last 3 years in the tournament. But one of the things I think is interesting about Lance Jones is he has no memory of that. There's no
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
predisposition. Not that the guys that are playing on his team have, but he can steer you away from that. He's, like you said, no fear, and he played that three hit again right in front of your broadcast position and about in your lap, as I recall, yesterday or on Wednesday. Was just again, he's there to make plays, and that really does make a difference in the team that is trying to get over the hump.
Where he's made the biggest difference, and this one of these things you can prove statistically, is how much better Purdue
Yeah.
is in transition with him,
Oh
just
yeah.
because of his
Yeah.
athleticism, his ability to get out and run and outrun the defense. He gets so many of those layups at the basket because he's able to get out and run without the ball on the wing, and Braden Smith normally finds him cutting to the bucket. And I say statistically because Purdue already has more fast break points this year than they had the
Right.
entire season last year. That's 35 games that Purdue played last year. And here we are now 22 games into this season, and Purdue already has more transition points. That's the Lance Jones effect. Then those are the easy points that Matt Painter talks
Yeah.
so much about. Look, Purdue's really good offensively, spends most of the year in the top 5 in adjusted offensive efficiency, but when you're constantly having to try to score against a set defense in the half court, that is a laboring task. That is tough to do on a night in, night out basis, especially in the Big Ten. So what do you do to
Yeah.
try to alleviate that? We try to get easy points in transition, and that's what Lance Jones has provided. So now Purdue doesn't have to try to score every single point in the game in half court offense against a set defense. So that to me has been the biggest attribute that he has brought to this team on a positive side is his ability to get Purdue points in transition. I think Braden Smith was more than capable of doing that last
Mhm.
year. He just didn't really have a running mate that could help him get those kind of buckets in transition. Now that we've added the athleticism that we have with Lance, that is a lethal 1-2 combination in transition offense, and Purdue's been better for it.
All right. The landscape of the Big Ten changed Thursday night to some extent. At least
Mm.
it got evened out with the Nebraska's come from behind win. What was the first time? And of course, it's great now that you've got all these data now that where you can sort by certain things and get this. This was Wisconsin with 120 games. They had not
Yeah.
blown a 15-point lead at the half. They did on Thursday night. But talk about the Big Ten as you see it. You've been in all arenas. Not that Purdue has played everyone yet in the league, but you certainly watch a lot of basketball. Sunday afternoon will be huge, and it will be interesting to see. Wisconsin got taken into overtime and lost. Purdue pulled one out of the fire. You watched a lot of basketball and sports in your life. What are you going to see from an added? What do you think the environment will be? It'll be raucous, I assume, in Wisconsin. But also, what do you think the psyche of the Badgers and Purdue will be going into that game?
Well, let's go with the old Gene Katie thought of, not who you play them, but when you play them.
Well,
And so I'm not sure what to expect
yeah,
from Wisconsin after losing to Nebraska. You're right. It's an overtime loss. It's a road game. It's a game in which you blew a 19-point lead. So they're going to be traveling back, or they did travel back, I should say, late on Thursday night. And that's a quick turnaround for them. Granted, they're the home
yeah,
team, but that's going to be a quick turnaround to play at what'll be noon local time for them on Sunday. So I'm anxious to see maybe, and I watched that game very closely Thursday night, trying to study up to get ready for our broadcast. And they're only playing, they played 9. Greg played 9,
yeah.
but he really played closer to 7.
That's right.
A couple of those guys, Carter Gilmore didn't play a whole lot of CG, and I don't think played at all in the second half. If he did, I don't remember it. So, they really played about 7. So they go into overtime on the road in a tough environment. So I'm not sure what to expect from them. They're always good in the Kohl Center. I know Purdue won there last year, but they're just always so good at home. Just something about that building. But I would also, remind the fans, even though Purdue won there last year, 2 years ago, it was the Chucky Hepburn bank shot at the buzzer in
Oh
overtime
yeah.
that gave Wisconsin a Big Ten championship over Purdue. So I remember that game quite well, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm not sure what to expect, Alan. The old Gene Katie, and not who you play, but when you play them, they could probably go one of two ways just from an emotional standpoint with that loss at Nebraska. But I would also add this, as a Purdue basketball guy, I can empathize with what happened at Nebraska Thursday night. That is a difficult building to play in. And when they
Yeah.
start making threes like they did in the second half, especially CJ Wilcher, they become darn near impossible to beat. And what happened with Wisconsin is the same thing would happen with Purdue when Purdue lost it in Lincoln, and that is too many turnovers. Wisconsin
Yeah.
had a season high in turnovers in that game Thursday night, similar to what Purdue did. Purdue turned the ball over way too much in that game and let Nebraska make way too many 3-point shots. So we can empathize with the Badgers because we've been there, done that. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
this season.
Rink Mass is really good too. I mean, he
Mm,
made some big plays down the stretch, and like you said, CJ Wilcher was terrific. Chucky Hepburn, yes, Purdue fans can't wash that out of their brains after 2 years ago, but he is a talent. Did not have as great a game maybe on Thursday night, but he wasn't. It wasn't that he wasn't productive, and he was well into double figures. But it will be an interesting matchup. Nobody matches up with Zach Edey, and you don't
yeah.
feel like Wisconsin has that. I mean, by definition, that happens. But do you think that that's a place that they'll really try to exploit Purdue? I mean, they always do anyway. But what do you think Matt Painter will try to throw at them as much as anything?
Yeah, Stephen Crowell is a 7-footer, but he's
Yeah,
not 7'4", 300 pounds with the skill level that Zach is. And I
right.
would say this too. I know this is a segment that's supposed to be about Nebraska, but Rink Mast is the toughest matchup in the Big
Yes.
Ten for Zach, just because he can step out and shoot the three, and he's nimble enough to put the ball on the floor and dribble past Zach if needed. So without question, Rink is a really difficult matchup for Zach. Stephen Crowell, however, is much more of a traditional 5. Now, Crowell can step out and shoot the three. He doesn't do it often, but he certainly can when needed. But he's not a high volume 3-point shooter. He's not going to be taking 5 or 6 or 7 threes in that game on Sunday. It's just not what he does. So it is a much more
Yeah.
traditional matchup for Purdue from the center standpoint. But really, Alan, I mean, that game on Sunday is coming down to guard play. You watched
Yeah.
AJ Storr tonight. I keep saying tonight. Sorry, Thursday night. AJ Storr, 18 points in the first half against Nebraska. That guy could not miss. Now
Yeah.
he wasn't quite as good in the second half, certainly, but if he has that type of a game against Purdue on Sunday afternoon, that's going to be very difficult for Purdue because he has really provided them a real punch in the arm from an offensive standpoint after transferring in from St. John's. And quite
Yeah.
frankly, I think Blackwell's a lot better than we saw him play Thursday night at Lincoln. He did not play well in that game. He's been really good for him off the bench this year. Didn't have a great game Thursday night, but he will be playing at home, so he'll be a little bit more comfortable with the surroundings, obviously, as most young players normally are. So I know most of the attention goes to Zach Edey v. Stephen Crowell, and I get it. 2 very good 7-footers in our league going head to head. But really, I think it comes down to guard play on Sunday and who's getting the more production from the guard play. Is AJ Storr? Is Chucky Hepburn? Is Max Klesmit, who hit some huge threes
Yes.
Thursday night in the second
Yeah.
half for Wisconsin? Does he get it going? We saw Klesmit just last week against Indiana score 20 straight points all by himself. You think about that. We haven't seen Zach Edey do that. I mean, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
20 straight points all by yourself. And Klesmit did that against Indiana. So this game really, I think, comes down to guard play Sunday. Purdue's guards are really good. We know that. Lance has been good. Uh, Fletcher's been good. Obviously, Braden's been good. But you know what? Wisconsin's guard play has been really good too.
Yeah.
So that to me, that's where this game's going to come down to on Sunday.
Yeah, really interesting thing about the runs. There were 3 of them in the Nebraska game. Wisconsin had 3 guys that had over 10-point runs. I think in
Yeah,
that game as well,
right.
man. And very strange. That's another strange statistic, but a strange thing. And yeah, I'd never have heard. I don't think I've ever heard of 20 points. I'm sure it's happened.
Yeah.
But even the great scorers like Rick Mount and others over the years, that's an incredible feat. And the Badgers seem to be, at least in the Nebraska game Thursday, were streaky in that level, but got had that 19-point lead and couldn't hold it. And now Purdue in the loss column, and maybe all the way is now tied with the Badgers for first place. All
And
right, one
so
question I
interesting.
had.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
go
and
ahead.
I hate to cut you off there, Alan, but and I think
Oh,
most of our fans know this, but in case you might have forgotten, remember Senior Day for Purdue is home against Wisconsin.
yeah,
So no matter what happens on Sunday, there is going to be a rematch, and it's going to be the final home game of the season and the final game ever at Mackey Arena for Zach Edey and for Mason Gillis and for Ethan Morton. So that no matter what happens Sunday, there's probably still a really good chance that Senior Day game at Mackey Arena is probably still going to have a major implication deciding who wins the Big Ten regular season title.
you know who the winner of that is? StubHub and SeatGeek for the value of those
Yeah.
tickets in Mackey Arena, and that service charge,
Oh,
unbelievable from that standpoint. All right, I want to ask you one question just about your job and how you do it on the road. It's always interesting because you do travel. Just take us through a 1 o'clock Eastern start or noon. Boilermakers will be up for pregame at 8, I would assume, or 8 Central. But tell us about what your game day, because you talk to Matt Painter, you're certainly around all that, and you get to the arena well and early. But take us through it. What will be your day on Sunday as you get ready for the Badgers?
okay. Yeah. Good question. Because I think it'd be nice for maybe some of the fans to have a little peek behind the curtain. Now, this weekend will be just a slight different in kind of how we go about our preparation, only because we cannot get into the Kohl Center and shoot around on Saturday afternoon. They have an event going that evening slash afternoon, so Purdue doesn't get a chance to get in there and shoot on Saturday. Typically for a noon tip, which is going to be noon local on a Sunday, we would go over to the arena sometime Saturday, late afternoon, early evening, at least shoot for an hour or so. We won't have that luxury this time around. That rarely happens, but it is happening here. So, with that in mind, this is how it's going to look like on Sunday. And I know this because I just got the itinerary sent to me a few hours ago. But so we'll have at 8 a.m., we'll get the guys all gathered up in a banquet room there at the hotel, and they'll watch about 15 minutes of film, and it'll just be refresher stuff. Purdue's had the last couple of days to get ready for this game, so they've already seen plenty of film on Wisconsin. But it'll just
Yeah,
be a matter of PJ Thompson will take us through, I don't know, 10 or 12 defensive looks that he thinks we're going to get against Wisconsin on film that he's seen against the stuff that we run offensively. And then either Terry Johnson or Paul Lusk we'll do the same thing on defense. They'll talk through 10 or 12 things about, hey, this is how we want to defend. Again, this is all refresher stuff. The guys have been over it for the last
yeah,
48 hours or so. So it's just a real quick hit for a quick refresher. That lasts about 15 minutes. And then our guys will have breakfast right there in that same room. They'll bring breakfast out, and that'll kind of be it. They'll go back to their rooms and get all dressed and ready to go. And with a noon game, we'll bus out at like about 9:45 or so to get to the arena. We will get to the arena a little bit earlier to shoot around about 15 minutes earlier than we normally would. But again,
yeah.
that's because we didn't get a chance to shoot Saturday night. So you just want the guys to get an extra 15 minutes of shooting around in that building to try to get a feel for Kohl Center and that kind of stuff. Most of our guys have already played a game there, obviously last year, so it's not that big of a deal. I don't know if Lance Jones has ever played there or not. I'm
Yeah,
assuming he hasn't, but so it's really
yeah,
not that big of a deal for our guys. But you ask about me personally. So when the film is done and the players start to eat breakfast, Coach Painter and I will step out of the room and we'll pre-record our pregame show, which is about a 5-minute segment. And then when we're done, I'll give the microphone to Bobby Riddell, my broadcast partner, and he will do his 5-minute segment with one of our assistant coaches for what's called the scouting report segment. So we knock that stuff out early, and then we all have our breakfast too, and then that's kind of it, man. Get on the bus and roll over to the Kohl Center and try to find a way to beat the Badgers.
yeah. And you take the air an hour before tip,
Right.
so you'll be on 11 o'clock Central, noon Eastern, and you also get to travel with the Great West Scott. So that part
We
is a
do.
good
And
thing
I should
too.
also mention
Yeah,
this, and I know you know this, Alan. But so Stephanie and I, our oldest son Evan, he's a freshman at the University of Wisconsin. So this
Did
game's got
not,
a little
yeah,
extra
that's right.
meaning
You told
in the
me,
black, yeah,
yeah.
in the Blackman household. This game's got a little extra writing on it because old dad doesn't want to have to hear it from his oldest son if things go sideways for our Boilermakers on Sunday. So we'll be a house divided for about 2 hours on Sunday afternoon.
Will you get a chance to visit with him then when you're up there?
Yeah, he'll be we're
On
actually gonna we our team will arrive in Madison actually early Saturday, early afternoon. So we're gonna spend some time with him, and Stephanie's going on the trip. So but he's a
oh,
college
great.
kid. I know you've had a couple in your house, Alan. He didn't want to spend a whole lot of time with mom and dad Saturday, but we'll try to nail him down for a couple hours anyway to hang out with us.
I do know one thing: if you pay for something,
Yeah.
I always say vacations, but you take him out to eat, he'll be there. So, and
That's
that's a
that,
great sidelight. And thanks for sharing your a little bit of that because it really is interesting, not only on a family level, but also what will be happening. That. So, Rob, thanks so much for your time, and we appreciate it. We always appreciate your work, and you have done a masterful job of and a very difficult job, and that is replacing a legend in Larry Clisby. There is no replacing Larry Clisby, and I think you've been paid so much respect to his legacy, and that has been a very, very important thing as well. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple minutes when Bruce Weber will join us, and we'll talk some more Purdue basketball as well, certainly with the big game coming on Sunday. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.